Hey there, wild things. Welcome back to my channel. Yeah, this is a thing I do now. Anyway, I am sat here on this particular stool because today I'm going to be giving you 10 tips and 5 misconceptions about learning a new language. What's the best way to go about it? What are some tips that really helped me? And what are some things you should just get out of your head to begin with? All right, let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is give you an overview of my language background. English is my first language. The first language I really endeavored in besides my own was Latin. When I was young, I went to the library, found a book on Latin, and tried to self-study some Latin. I still have a textbook of sorts. Well, this is more of a dictionary of Latin and Greek origin words I found really helpful in high school. For those of you who end up taking SATs or anything like that, this book will get you very far. It is not like fun and interesting, but it may help your English language skills improve. So if you're trying to learn English, Greek and Latin origins might help you, and if you're already an English speaker who is studying, this might also be beneficial. It is by Bob and Maxine Moore, the Dictionary of Latin and Greek Origins. So check that out for sure. In school, I studied Spanish. I took 4 years of Spanish and had a relatively strong grasp on the language. I have been to the Canary Islands. I have been to Spain. I have used it. The Spanish that I learned was Spain Spanish. So a lot of my friends who are from Latin America may tease me about my accent. I say things like cerveza and zumo de naranja, which is different than cerveza and jugo de naranja, which is what they say south of our border here. So that was my second language, I'd say, was Spanish. Even though I dabbled in Latin, it's a dead language and you can't really speak it with anybody. It did help me further solidify my grasp of English, but my official second language was Spanish. Following Spanish, I moved into Korean, the purple book, which is really important to me, and I will tell you more about this later. So yeah, I guess my third language is Korean. I am not fluent. I don't like to use the word fluent when I talk about the languages I know. I like to use the word proficiency. I'm still a beginner when it comes to Korean. I have vocabulary in my head, I have some grammar, but I understand more than I speak. So that's a hurdle I'm trying to get over right now. Newest language, the one that I just finished, that I do have intermediate level of proficiency with, is Japanese. And since that's the last language I'm working with, I have the most Japanese material available to me. I'm learning Japanese. There's 4, and then a kanji book, and then an additional book of Japanese stories in both English and Japanese that I like to use for translating and practice and renshi. I told you this video is going to be 10 tips and 5 misconceptions. So let's get into tip number 1. Number 1 is simple as. Simple as. AF. Simple. Simply AF. Choose a language that has either interest or importance to you. Like, why else are you going to choose to learn a language? I mean, obviously there are plenty of people out there who have to learn a language out of necessity, moving to a new place against their will. And I don't mean like trafficking, I mean more like children being thrust into a new environment. TCKs are one of them, which stands for third culture kids, but it's a completely different discussion and video. But moving somewhere new or having to learn a new language. Actual importance, such as the want to use it for travel or study or speaking with grandma, is going to get you a lot farther than wanting to learn a language because you like it. I don't know. Like, I can't think of an example that's not going to be insulting to anybody. So I'll just say that. Learn a new language for the importance or the use of it. Some personal importance, some personal use that's going to drive you to want to continue to study. Otherwise, what are you doing it for? Familiarize yourself with it. I put down movies, dramas, subtitles, music, games, your brain is subconsciously doing the work. The purple book comes in. So the purple book was from me in Korean, and that started just because I met a lot of Korean friends in boarding school and in university, and I just kind of wish to be able to join in the conversation. They always seem to be having so much fun and laughing and enjoying themselves, and I didn't understand and I wanted to. So I decided to endeavor into learning Korean, and it started with Korean music. And then from that, some of my friends in boarding school suggested to me Korean dramas, and that was next. I watched Korean dramas in Korean with subtitles.
간다, 신호 간다.
야, 하지 마.
안 걸 거면 왜 받아?
인간처럼 보이려고. 언젠가 저러 할지도 모르니까.
지금이 그 언젠가야.
여보세요.
인간처럼. 언놈.
안녕하세요. 저는 아니야, 별로야. 좀 거칠게 나가볼까? 뭐해? 내 목소리 몰라? 예전만한 목소리가 아닌데. 이것도 아니야. 여보세요. 어머, 여보세요. 여보세요.
나 세 번째. 여보세요.
너 다 듣고 있었어? 너 왜 이거 안 걸려?
멋있지? 신기하지? 전화나 받아.
Consume media in the language of your choosing. It's going to help. You're going to get familiar with sounds and phrasings and all that kind of stuff, and I found it really helpful. Number 3 is familiarize yourself with the basics. And now that's different than just getting involved, just starting to hear the language, getting used to it being spoken or heard around you. You need to learn some of the basics. I find it better to learn them by yourself before you start studying with a group or with a textbook or whatever. Example for this is 6 months before I moved to Japan, I taught myself hiragana and katakana. I couldn't get through all the kanjis myself. There are certain things about kanjis that you need to be taught, such as stroke order, etc. Though I did take Mandarin for a year in university, so some of that I already knew. Endeavoring to learn all 2,400 of them right before I left was just not feasible. I had to pack up my whole life. I had to figure out what was going on. So just learning katakana and hiragana was enough. And I think there's 45 of each. So that's 90 characters in this writing system for me to endeavor to learn. And that helped. In Japanese, katakana is the writing system used for word that is not natively Japanese. That meant in Japanese, reading the word toire, I could read the katakana and I knew that that was a toilet. I could sound it out, figure it out. And having the basic writing system meant that when I looked at the roster for my students, I could read their names. I didn't have to know their kanjis. I could read the hiragana above their kanjis. When you're working in a class or with a group or another person doing speakings and that type of stuff, you have to move at a certain pace. People are pushing you forward. And in certain respects that's good because you advance quickly, but in other respects it takes people longer to catch on to things. You want to be able to process information at your own pace in your own way. Right. So tip 4 is study in your field of interest. Music, game shows, dramas, video games, any of that stuff. I fell in love with Korean game shows. Like random game shows that you could find on YouTube. So if you're learning Korean, these might still be available, but Kangshinjang, which is Strong Heart in English, was one of them, and Star Golden Bell was another. Games in them where there was a child or another person describing a term or a verb or vocabulary to these people in Korean using different types of words, different types of phrases, and they had to guess what they were being described. Maybe the topic was fruit, maybe the topic was verbs or something like that, just anything like that.
는 속담입니다. 헐거벗은 사람이요? 뭐가 없어요? 옷. 밤에 천사에 그 있잖아요. 날개. 옷이 날개다.
I used to sit on my bed and watch them, A, because they're really funny and entertaining, and then they had subtitles. I would sit and copy down the answer. Words that I had heard before or understood what they meant, I put a little pink dot beside at the time. And I used to sit for hours and hours and hours and watch these game shows, directions and locations that way, random phrases. So in the field of my interest, which was Korean game shows, Korean media, I found some way to study from that, some way to pull vocabulary or grammar or something that I could be learning. Fifth tip is about grammar and how grammar is never easy. It's going to be the hardest part about learning a language, not the vocabulary, not context, not speaking, not listening, not writing. It's going to be grammar. From studying Japanese grammar is that the way you think about and process information may not apply to the language you're learning. Be prepared to bend your rationale to adapt not only to the language that you're speaking, but through that language to the culture from which you are learning. Japanese culture is naturally very different than culture here in the United States. To effectively learn this language and to absorb what is being told to me, what I'm saying, I need to also consciously separate my personalities almost. You need to become a slightly different person in each of the languages you're speaking. When you speak different languages, your personality naturally changes. My voice in Japanese is higher than it is here, softer and cutier and like all these things in Japanese that I am not in English. And if you're having a hard time understanding a grammar or understanding a vocab or how you use something, it's because you might be approaching it from your current cultural context. Talk about some misconceptions about learning. Kids learn languages better / easier / whatever than adults, and I find that to not be true. I started studying my second language when I was in high school. I learned Japanese. I started studying that when I was fresh out of university. Yes, kids are learning all kinds of things all the time. A kid has to start building these language blocks from scratch. They have no idea how language works. They have a very limited vocabulary. Everything in their brain is limited. In an adult, you have the whole world is your oyster. You have all these experience, all these context clues, all these things that you can already link together. You just need to rewire your brain to think about them in a different order. Sometimes when speaking Japanese or when wanting to say something in Japanese, I physically have to visualize the word. I'm like, all right, this needs to go here and this needs to go here and this, and then the verb goes here and then this is my sentence, you know? And that happens. I have to move things around. It's like a little math problem. And that's because my brain already knows what I'm trying to say. I just need to rewire it into a way that someone else will understand. The closer you are to your language group, the easier that is. Romance languages, obviously English and Spanish and French, are so similar that reworking formula for your language is easier than obviously going English to Hebrew or English to Vietnamese. That's going to be a completely different math equation, but it doesn't mean it's not doable. It just means it'll take you a little bit more time. So studies have also proven that this is not true, that kids and adults can learn languages at the same rate. It's just not true. The second misconception is that we all learn languages in the same way. Bruh. We don't learn anything in the same way. All these tips I'm giving you, all this stuff that seems like great advice to me may be complete bullshit. It might not help you at all because no one learns the same way. Tip number 3. Maybe I'm just bad at languages. Maybe. Doesn't mean you can't be taught. Just because you're bad at something doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means it takes extra effort. Tip number 6 is apps. My phone is full of apps. I don't really play games. I have one game on my phone right now that I'm obsessed with, but in the next few months it's probably gonna go away because I get bored with games really easily. What I do have a lot on my phone is social media and language learning apps. I travel a lot, I'm on planes a lot. I like to do it on planes, in the airport, that kind of stuff. I used to have kanji apps and apps for hiragana, katakana, and hangul. There are tons of apps available. The free ones are just fine when you're commuting or standing at the Starbucks queue waiting for your latte. Just those steps will build. Next, you need to find empty time in your day. Again, waiting for a latte at the dentist. I was at a doctor's appointment and the doctor left to go get a shot and then come back. She was gone for 15 minutes and I was on my phone reviewing kanjis. Like that, those little sections of the day when you could be playing a game or on social media, one of those times decide to study using an app instead or something like that. 8, study in your sleep. What? But you can study in your sleep. You can set up a YouTube or a podcast or music or whatever, while you're sleeping for a certain amount of time, your brain is still working. Your brain is still taking it. Before I went to bed in Japan for almost a year, I'd listen to this Japanese video and I'd put in some headphones or let it play, and it plays for, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes to an hour, and then those things are still in my brain as I'm sleeping. My brain is hearing that and processing that and doing stuff with that information.
私たちは4時間待ちました。
私たちは4時間待ちました。
We waited for 4 hours.
Listen to it in your sleep. I guarantee it'll help. Number 9. You gotta use the language. You gotta find some way to use it. I'm really paranoid about forgetting Japanese. It was such a labor of love to learn, and I don't want to have to start it from scratch ever again. So try to use it as frequently as possible. Around the house, when I'm just home alone, sometimes I'll start talking to myself in Japanese. Sometimes when my boyfriend does something irritating, I'll start yelling at him in Japanese, or I'll tell him something in Japanese when I'm frustrated, and he will be like, what? I don't know what that means. And I'll be like, it doesn't matter, because this is the language that I'm using right here, right now, today. I like to use my Japanese whenever I can. I'm just gonna sneak it in there. I have accidentally used Japanese in India, in France, in New York City. In India, I met a friend at the airport, and I had just flown in from Japan, so my brain really was in like Japan mode. I had to fill out like a customs form or something, and I dropped the pen. So I bent over to pick up the pen, had a huge backpack on, and hit somebody, and immediately turned around and started apologizing in Japanese. To my astonishment, the person who I had hit was from Japan. He started responding like, oh no, it's okay. Oh, daijoubu desu. Oh, sumimasen. We both realized that we were speaking in Japanese. The same thing happened to me in Paris. No, not that I hit someone with my backpack, but I went into a macaron shop with my boyfriend. All the flavors were in French, and much to my dismay, je ne comprends pas. I do not speak French yet. I didn't really have a grasp of all the flavors. I could kind of guess what some of them were, what some of them weren't. As I went down the flavor list, I noticed that on little cards, some of them were in what appeared to be katakana. So I turned to the lady, the Teian, and said, "Sumimasen, Nihonjin desu ka?" And she was like, "Oh, yeah, I speak Japanese. I'm Japanese." And I was like, "Ah, yatta, okay." And then I was like, "Oh, so what is this flavor? What is this flavor? What does this mean? I don't recognize this kanji. What is that? How many of these can I have?" And she was also like, "Bikurushita," like here in the middle of Paris in the 14th arrondissement or whatever, there's this black American chick speaking to me in Japanese, telling me she wants 16 macaroons and one of them needs to be lemon. Like, she was shocked. So wherever you can go, you can slip in your language. It'll be really helpful, and you'll gain some confidence with it, and it's fun. My last tip is simple. It's get the gist. That's literally what I wrote down. Get the gist. You're not gonna always understand everything that's going on all the time, all the words, blah. It's the same in English, it's the same in whatever your home language is. Just grab the gist. Just grab context clues. You're not gonna understand all vocabulary everywhere all the time, and that's fine. But you need to know the gist of what's going on. So if you can grab bits and pieces here and there, you can build yourself a picture and be like, oh, I understand. To take some weight off your shoulders, because no language speaking person is perfect. The beauty of communication is that in itself, it is not perfect. Language is constantly evolving and constantly imperfect. 2 more common misconceptions that I want to bring up, and that is language learning is difficult. Of course it is, but learning anything new is difficult. Starting gymnastics is difficult. Starting CrossFit, hella difficult. Learning to box, difficult. Learning to box in non-English, even more difficult. What makes language learning seem easier or seem more fun is having an investment in the language and a way in which to learn that makes it fun. Well, CrossFit is fun because the community is great, even though all the workouts suck. Anything can be made more interesting and more fun. Just because it's difficult does not mean it's not doable. The 5th misconception is I sound stupid, my accent's not good, my language is broken, blah. Anybody that's endeavoring to learn a second language, regardless of what they sound like or how stupid they sound or how incomplete their sentences are, is doing something commendable and doing something interesting. So when people make fun of another person for having an accent as they speak, that's a residual of their first language or their third language or whatever, and that's not really something to make fun of. And I feel like that's something that we majorly do in the United States. We go, oh, they have an accent. Oh, their English is not so good. But they have an accent because this is not their first language. And abroad, speaking another language, I've never once been told, you have an accent, oh, it's so good. It's more people impressed that I'm taking the effort to learn their language, wanting to help me, wanting to improve my pronunciation, doing everything they can to encourage me to keep going. So your language might not be perfect, your English, your Spanish, your French, your Japanese, your whatever. Every time you open your mouth and you endeavor to try and you endeavor to say something, you're improving. Well, who cares if you sound stupid? And if anything, you think you sound stupid. No one else does. So keep practicing, keep talking, keep whatevering. The reason I made this video is because in about 2 weeks, I will be headed to the UAE, to Dubai, to endeavor to learn my sixth language. I'm gonna start learning Arabic this October and I'm really excited about it. It's been on my list for quite a number of years and I just have time to do it now. And then maybe next year, Icelandic, which is going to be such a challenge. So in both of those languages, I'm in the beginning stages now of trying to familiarize myself with the language. I've been to the UAE a bunch of times, so Arabic is, and I have a lot of friends who speak Arabic, so that's something that's pretty common to my ears, but Icelandic is not. I have some Scandinavian friends, but not many who speak Icelandic, so I'm in that phase of familiarizing myself with the language, with the writing system, with some of the culture, that type of stuff. So keep your eyes on this channel if you want to see how Arabic is going and more news about hopefully Icelandic in the coming year as we see how that goes. This is just step one of hopefully many trips to learn many languages. Find links to some of the videos and stuff that I listened to when I was learning Japanese and Korean down in the description box below. You can follow me on my Instagram at @thehero14. I'm trying to put out Friday videos every Friday. So make sure you click the subscribe button, which is somewhere down here. And you guys, you really can do it. Don't be discouraged. Pick up another language. I promise you it's gonna be beneficial. You can do it. Bye.